Howdy, Deezy Deezies.
Well, hello out there, everybody. I don't know why the hell I
You
did
don't
that,
do
but
a
it
very
just
good
seemed to go
Krusty.
with what you were sound like Ned Flanders over there. I'm like, I'll just pull a Krusty out of my hat. And I'm not wearing a hat. That's awesome. Welcome, everybody. This is the Battle Bros podcast with Alamo and Mac. I am Mac. My co-host over here is Alamo. Welcome. If you've checked out the show before, welcome back. If you're first time to the show, like I know some of you out there might be, welcome. Hopefully you like what you're hearing. So last week was interesting. We had to do a Thursday night show because of the fact that we had some obligations that we had to take care of. So it worked out. Hopefully you guys liked it. So, checked it out and thought, it was good. But we're back to Friday nights where we belong, and all is right
Exactly.
in the world. So without further ado, let's hit the ground running. So last episode that we were on, we talked about having like anger issues. I think what do we call it? Angry much?
Angry much. Yeah, we called it angry much.
We talked about having some anger issues, things you can do to calm down and whatnot. Let's face it. I mean, at one point or another, we've all had that. So we're human. So let's not try to deny and say, "Oh, that's not me." Okay, there, guy. So it happens to everybody. I mean, I get angry at little things, big things. My daughter. I get mad at her sometimes because I'm just like, it's like that scene from A League of Their Own with Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
I forget what his character's name is. Jimmy Dugan. He's like, Evelyn, you're missing the cutoff man. And it's something I want you to work on before next season. And then she's just like, okay, thank you, Mr. Dugan. Thank you. And he's just like, one of his best roles. If you haven't seen League of Their Own, like, it's a fantastic movie. It really is.
Absolutely, it is.
It's one of those cool historical movies and stuff. So, anyway, so that was last week's episode. If you saw it, great. Hope you like it. If you didn't, go back and watch it. Not right now, because you're watching this now and this is live.
Correct.
That's a little bit more kind of important. So, that being said, we're going to start talking about this week's episode. So, this week's episode, we're going to talk about a little bit more of a series. I want to say a little bit more, but we're going to talk about another serious kind of topic here. This is something that can be. This can apply to a lot of military folks out there, but it can also apply equally to civilians out there, folks that weren't in the military.
Oh, hell yeah!
Is survivor's guilt. So let's get to it. So, what exactly is survivor's guilt? So, survivor's guilt is a mental condition that occurs when a person believes they have done something wrong by surviving a traumatic or tragic event when others did not. And it often leads to a feeling of self-guilt, right? So, this can happen, like you said, in a lot of different ways. So, we found a couple of good articles that we're going to be pulling some source material from tonight. So yeah, as I said, they believe they did something wrong and they survived an event. Often feels like they have some self-guilt, yada yada yada. So survivor's guilt was first identified in the 1960s. Several therapists recognized similar, if not identical, conditions amongst Holocaust survivors. Similar signs and symptoms have been recognized in survivors of traumatic situations, including combat, natural disasters, terrorist attacks, air crashes, and wide-ranging job layoffs. A variant form of this has been found amongst rescue and emergency services personnel who blame themselves for doing too little to help those in danger, and among therapists who may feel a form of guilt in the face of their patients' suffering. And I thought that was really, really kind of interesting because we talk about folks,
You never would think that a therapist would feel that way, but it's actually kind of interesting that happens.
Absolutely. So the experience and manifestation of survivor's guilt will depend on the individual's psychological profile. So there's a book out there for those of you that don't know that relates to psychology and psychiatry and whatnot. It's called the DSM. It's the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. Currently, it is on volume 5. When the DSM volume 4 was published, survivor's guilt was removed as a recognized specific diagnosis and redefined as a significant symptom of post-traumatic stress disorder. It may be found among survivors of combat, epidemics, murder, natural disasters, rape, terrorism, accidents, among the family and friends of those who have died by suicide, and in some other non-mortal situations. So pretty fascinating stuff. And this article goes on to give some pretty good information about, like I said, it was first kind of identified in the 60s. There was a psychologist named Stephen Joseph, who worked at the University of Warwick. He studied some survivors of the capsizing of the MS Herald of Free Enterprise, which capsized after leaving Belgian port of Zeebrugge. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. On the night of 6 March, 1987, and it killed 193 passengers and crew on board. Of the 459 passengers it was carrying, his study showed.
Bruget.
Thank you, because I would have messed that up all day long. What he said. So anyway, his studies showed. So you have 193 out of 459 passengers that were, that died, that were killed. His studies showed that 60% of the survivors suffered from survivor guilt. Joseph went on to say, quote, "There were 3 types. First, there was guilt about staying alive where others had died. Second, there was guilt about things they failed to do. These people often suffered post-traumatic intrusions as they relived the event again and again. Third, there were feelings of guilt about what they do, such as scrambling over others to escape. These people usually wanted to avoid thinking about the catastrophe. They didn't want to be reminded of what really happened." So, if you start looking at this from the psychological aspect, it's this one gets a little bit heavy relatively quickly. So, but I read on here. So it was first kind of identified as survivor syndrome, which also became known as concentration camp syndrome, or the KZ syndrome, on the account of the German term Konzentrationslager, which I guess means concentration camp or whatnot. In 1949, Eddie de Wind, a Dutch psychiatrist and survivor of the Auschwitz concentration camp, introduced the term concentration camp syndrome regarding the psychological consequences of persecution, describing the pathological after effects unique to former prisoners of the Nazi concentration and extermination camps. The subsequent well-documented syndrome amongst Holocaust survivors. Yeah, since you speak as a Deutsch a little bit, so. What?
No, nothing. I was just going to say, speaks the Deutsch.
No.
Anyway, go ahead.
But I will want to ask you, guten Abend. Haben Sie Old Milwaukee? No, we don't have any Milwaukee. It's a German bar. No, I don't think so. Anyway, sorry. Probably wasn't the best time for that. So the symptoms among this Holocaust, this documented syndrome included anxiety and depression, intellectual impairment, social withdrawal, sleep disturbance, nightmares, physical complaints, and mood swings with loss of drive. Commonly, such survivors feel guilty they have survived the trauma, and others, such as their family, friends, and colleagues, do not. Both conditions, along with the descriptive syndromes covering a wide range of traumatic events, are now subsumed under post-traumatic stress disorder, as we just talked about how they took it away as a primary diagnosis in DSM-4 and made it as a symptom of PTSD. So what does that mean for folks in kind of our bailiwick, our wheelhouse here? Hold that thought.
10-4.
Sorry, I had to whistle. So, for those folks, our brothers and sisters that may have served, whether it's in the military, whether you have folks that are in the emergency services realm of things, first responders, cops, firemen, paramedics, EMTs, you name it. It could mean that, it could be something that you may have experienced somewhere in your career, and it's just kind of messes with you, stays with you. For guys in the military, obviously, it's kind of like if you follow the page at all, we put up a image for the show every week, kind of related to what the topic is. And we started discussing this earlier in the week, and I had mentioned to Alamo there is a really good song that the band Five Finger Death Punch, great band, awesome stuff. They covered a song by The Offspring called "Gone Away," which the tone of theirs is a lot more dark, and it's a lot more kind of angst filled and anger fueled. So the music video that goes along with this song is about this guy who goes overseas, and like the other three dudes in his crew, like Humvee crew, truck crew, whatever you want to call it, they end up paying the ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah.
And he goes home, and he just kind of spirals down into a lot of bad stuff, falling apart, drinking. Maybe they hinted, I think, at drug usage in the video. I'm not 100% certain. But what's cool about a lot of their videos is they kind of relate them to like military, law enforcement, that kind of crowd. But this guy ends up at the end. This character in the music video at the end of the video ends up going back and re-enlisting or cycling up for another pump or whatnot, and goes back over. And you see him take on like three new guys, and he's sitting there, and he's got his arm up like this, and he's wearing black MIA or a KIA bracelet. He's wearing three of them for the three buddies that were lost in action and stuff. So it's just like really, really, really powerful. So it's not exactly something you want to take lightly. I mean, the effects of this can be very, 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 very debilitating, almost to the point of being permanent, if they go untreated or unchecked and just kind of unrecognized and whatnot. So Alamo, I've been talking for like a good 5-6 minutes. Did you want to have anything you want to add to this?
Well, this is gonna it's kind of what I was telling you about earlier, that I kind of wanted to, I was gonna let it be on the show just because I kind of wanted it to be what you call it, but it kind of be that kind of raw, real type deal.
Authentic.
Yeah, and what you call it? I have experienced a version of this myself. Really after freaking what you call it, we lost Essential 7. It was difficult to kind of wrap my head around back then, in large part because of the state of mind I was in. And when they were hit, it hit me harder than I would have ever expected, only because first, let me start off from the beginning. These guys, they were in Hunter Platoon, which is our I was in a mortar section. These guys were in the Hunter Platoon. These guys were snipers in HCC company, which I think we've discussed this before. Obviously, you're going to be kind of the elite of the elites of the company. Like, you're going to be your company, your HCC company is going to consist of your mortar platoon, which is the best of the mortars. And you're going to have the sniper platoon, which is the best of the marksmen in the company, and then so on and so on and so on. And the guys that we lost were in the sniper platoon. Like, I didn't know these guys really, in the sense that I wasn't around them and training with them every single day, but I knew them well enough, or at least some of them well enough to know that they were good guys. They had families, you know. Um, and the one thing that gets me to this day, um, full disclosure, when I went to combat, um, I kind of went there with every intention, for all intents and purposes. I went there to, you know, do my job. I went there to do what I had to, and maybe possibly go down in the flames of glory, whatever, blah blah blah. Um,
And
which
I think that's the conversation that every service member going down range has with himself. You
yeah,
know,
I
because I think if you don't have that conversation with yourself, it's a bit foolhardy, because
yeah,
you have to understand it's a real possibility. Like I don't know how it was in Iraq, but like the whole freaking country of Afghanistan, the majority of it, it's and especially now. I mean, it's a damn free fire zone. It's like
yeah,
shit could pop off at any point. You're gonna next thing you know, you're writing out a report for troops in contact, all that kind of stuff, radioing that stuff back to higher headquarters and stuff.
yeah.
And yeah. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
Continue.
no, no. You're good. You're good. I fully expected to either die, or I fully expected to find ways that, if need be, it would be me before any of the other guys.
Right.
Um, I even then, like, there was a lot of things that had happened for between, prepping for Iraq and then going to Iraq and all that stuff, where I wasn't feeling very proud of myself. I wasn't feeling very, up and up and all that stuff. And this is not to say that I was going to be reckless to the point of like getting guys killed to make sure that I was in the way of something, but at the same time, I was definitely not concerned about necessarily what happened to me. Um,
And again, I think that's part of a very rational and not as rare of a conversation as a service member should have with themselves.
yeah,
I remember having a conversation with one of my civilian friends, and somehow it got brought up, like talking about how we would sit over there, and it's like, if we had to plan out our own destiny, how we would go,
yeah,
like, how would you go? And I was like, as long as it was quick and I didn't have any pain. Like, if it's my time, it's my time.
yeah,
It is what it is. I would
absolutely.
hate to be one of those poor bastards over in the island hopping campaign that the Marines went through in World War II. They got smoke checked by a flamethrower. It's like, ugh, that's just
Yeah,
freaking awful. Like, shoot me, just make it over quick, that kind of stuff. And again,
yeah,
it may sound a little bit morbid, but to those folks that have gone over, it's probably not. And if anybody's listening at home, please feel free to jump online to the messenger and leave your comments and stuff so we can bring them up during the show. We always are wanting to have that engagement with our viewers and whatnot. And
yeah.
yeah, tell us your thoughts on that. So, but anyway, man, I'm gonna try to stop breaking your stride.
No, no, you're good. You're good. You're good.
Go for it, dude.
I know, again, like the guys, they, when, coming from that mindset that I had where it was, and again, like I said, there was a lot of stuff that had happened, and I didn't feel very confident or happy with myself or anything like that. So I was fully ready and willing to go over there and, again, meet my maker. But if I was going to meet my maker, I was going to do it in a way that, was it was my choice to do it, in the sense that it would have been me doing what I felt was necessary
On your own terms.
on my own terms. Well, I didn't end up going, obviously, because I'm home. I didn't end up dying. Um,
And we're super thankful for that.
and yeah. Um, but I remember thinking, at the time, these guys, you know, I didn't see, I didn't see, you know, guys in uniform. I didn't see other soldiers. I saw husbands. I saw fathers. I saw brothers. And it was it was difficult for me to wrap my head around. Um, I couldn't understand why I couldn't understand why those guys got taken out and I didn't. I wasn't a very high speed guy, or at least I felt I wasn't a very high speed guy. I didn't have any family connections really, besides and again, call it me being young and stupid. Um, I didn't have a wife to go back to. I didn't have kids. I was just some fucking dumb grunt that you know went over there to do my thing. And if I got killed, I didn't see any problem with that. But when I saw, again, like I said, I saw husbands, fathers, brothers. I didn't see I didn't see that at the time. I didn't see it as uh I saw it as, what the hell? Why couldn't you let these guys go back home and let some jackass take the brunt of it? Um and there are times where I still feel that same way. But then again I look at it and I see my kids and I see my wife and I say, you know what? It wasn't the most glorious thing for them to go out the way they did, but they as morbid as it seems to say it, they went out doing what they thought was right regardless, even if they got taken out.
Yeah.
But that still sticks with me.
Oh, sure. I'm sure it
Still
does.
sticks with me.
Oh, of course.
So
I forget where I saw it, Alamo, but I saw something about a guy who had two of his NCOs that were above him. I think a team leader and a squad leader taken out. And afterwards, he just was kind of like, I get up every day and I live the life worthy of their sacrifice. And if you think about that, what does that really mean? Yeah, we're alive and they're not. But at the same time, go out there and do something and make it worthwhile. Make their loss worth it. Make, the fact that you're home and around and stuff, make it, offset that terrible cost of conflict that we've endured for the last 20 years in some case and about 15 in others and whatnot. But it's just really, it's terrible. I mean, it's just, I would never ever want to do that casualty notification officer job. Like that would just, that would floor me.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of switching gears here, kind of getting back on track to what we were talking about. So we're going to kind of give you some examples of some other kind of cultural references of survivor's guilt. Sorry, I'm just trying to process all that was just said and whatnot. So I'm going to give you a bunch of examples of it, and we're going to also talk about some cultural references. So if you are younger than the age of 33, maybe definitely under the age of 20. You probably haven't heard of anybody by the name of Waylon Jennings, but Waylon Jennings was a guitarist for Buddy Holly's band and initially had a seat on the ill-fated aircraft on the day the music died on February 3rd, 1959. So this is a plane crash that happened where Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, the Big Bopper, Jake Ripson were killed in a plane crash near Clear Lake, Iowa, along with the pilot, whose name is Roger Peterson. So Waylon Jennings, gave up his seat to the Big Bopper, who was a American musician. He wasn't feeling well; he was sick at the time. Only to learn later of the plane's crash. When Holly learned that Jennings was not going to fly, Buddy Holly told him, "Well, I hope your old bus freezes up." And just kind of guys shooting the shit. Waylon Jennings responded back, "Well, I hope your old plane crashes." And at the time, it was said in jest, kind of joking at the time, but the exchange of words ended up haunting him for the rest of his life. I mean, to say that and then it happens, I can only imagine what that feels like. So, another example they had, and this is a little bit more contemporary. This article that we're looking at, it is talks about the high school shooting that took place at February 14th, 2018 at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School here in Parkland, Florida. Sydney Aiello survived the shooting, in which her close friend was killed. Aiello subsequently struggled with survivor's guilt, and she had been diagnosed with PTSD. On March 17th of 2019, Aiello, who was age 19, died by suicide. Less than a week later, on March 23rd of that same year, Coral Springs police announced that Calvin DeSur, a juvenile male student from the same high school, was found dead, resulting from an apparent suicide as well. So, this definitely has the capability and the potential to turn really bad really quickly. So that's why, we harp on, we'll bring it up into the show, but we always harp on the National Suicide Hotline. We talk about reaching out to people and whatnot. There are resources out there. You just have to know where to look and how to get in touch with them. So some other cultural references that we found on this article we're going to name right here. So there's a couple of shows from the Twilight Show, the original Twilight Zone, where they talk about survivors guilt. I mean, it just goes to show you, TV back then was hella better. So good. It was amazing. Let's see. Here's a good one. So the rescue show, the TV series Rescue Me. This was a show that was on after 9/11. Featured Dennis Leary as a New York City fireman named Tommy Gavin. He was first responder experiencing severe survivor guilt over the civilians he was unable to save and the other firefighters who died in the 9/11 attacks, many of whom he personally knew. Let's see here. What else are we talking about on this? There's a great punk band called Rise Against. They have a song called Survivor Guilt on their 2011 album Endgame. Let's do it earlier this week. It's actually really good. Let's see. Oh, Batman. So everybody knows the story of Batman. Goes to the movies with his mom and dad. Bruce Wayne does. Mom and dad are gunned down when attempted to be robbed. He gets raised by Alfred on his own, and kind of takes on the mantle of this mass superhero, which becomes known as the Batman. Here we go. So, the 2004 sci-fi action movie I, Robot was Will Smith. Pretty good sci-fi movie. His character, Detective Spooner, actually has survivor's guilt because a car went over and he was pulled out of the wreckage because the android, the robot that saved him, statistically pulled up the fact that he, being an adult, would have a much better chance of survival versus the child, which was his child in the car. So that would be a bit rough as well.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, if for all the sports movie fans out there, there's a movie in 2000 it came out in 2006 called We Are Marshall. So if anybody's not familiar with this, the university, I think it's Marshall University, their mascot is the Thundering Herd. In 1970, the football team, minus like 2 or 3 people, the entire football team perished when the plane crashed.
Mhm.
As you're traveling back from a game. So you had to bring in this whole brand new coach. The coach is played by Matthew McConaughey, very good, talented actor. There's a few other faces you might know. Anthony Mackie's in it, some other folks from different movies and whatnot. But just the whole town kind of had to deal with like starting over and all that kind of crazy stuff. It was,
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. Let's see here. What else? Let me just check the notes that we made earlier. Okay. So I mean, there's a lot of good movies and shows and whatnot. From a Harry Potter fans, the book Harry Potter Half-Blood Prince mentioned to Harry that Tonks may be sad over Sirius's death because he has survivor's guilt. But there's all kinds of great examples out there. There's that new show Squid Game. I don't even know what it's about. I don't think I want to know. It's just weird.
Everybody's talking about that one.
Dude, I'm not. I usually wait, man. I just want to watch a new show just because all the episodes are out. They stopped producing it, so it's been off the air. Like, I'm not the kind of guy that rushes out and gets it when it's brand new. Like, even if I go out and buy PlayStation games, I wait till they've been out for like several years, and then I'll go buy it because they're like stupid cheap. I'm still rocking a PS2. So yeah, laugh it up, man. That's whatever. But I'll go out and I'll find games for it, and they're like $5-10. It's nothing. You're just jealous there, bucko. So let's not exactly get into that. So that being said, I mean, this is definitely something that can have a permanent, heavy-handed effect on your life. So what can we do to try to fix it? Well, going off of some article stuff here. So the different article, we're going to kind of rehash some of the same information, but so let's just get kind of right into it. What is survivor's guilt? You endure a particularly traumatic experience, as you do when you endure a relapse, a sexual assault, or other kind of violence, or a loved one's sudden, unexpected death. When someone you love dies or suffers while you pull through. You know this isn't your fault. You know you didn't cause this, but you still feel unsettled in the pit of your stomach with an overwhelming sense of guilt that just won't go away. Due to the unpredictable and unstable nature of addiction, it's not uncommon for people succeeding in recovery to feel guilty about their positive outcome while others they care about, still struggle or worse.
You know, that's really relevant too. A lot of my drinking kind of stemmed from because of the thoughts I discussed earlier, having that thought of like, these guys were so much. I felt that they deserved so much more than just to be taken out by that house. You know what I mean? That bomb in that house. And I remember when I came home, and I came home to nothing. And, I felt like nothing, you know what I mean? When I left, I came, which is, I think, a big part of the reason why I re-entered the military, probably 4 or 5 months later in the reserves. I needed something to keep my mind off of the fact that I came home and just decided to do really nothing with my life at the time. I went into college, dropped out, Didn't really feel like it was, all that great because of the, the I guess you could say that the kids in college back then, they were just so naive, and even to this day, I think it's even worse. Just didn't know what the hell was going on over there. Um, but yeah, I felt like a big nothing, and I remember, Tisha doesn't know this, but I remember thinking to myself, like, dude, like, you realistically, you should have died over there.
Yeah.
But you came back, and you know those guys didn't. The it the whole thing about it was, for me, was, as discussed earlier, it was, and even to this day, I've pretty much, for the most part, come to terms with what the outcome is, because I wouldn't have the wonderful family I have right now if I didn't come back.
Amen to that.
But the struggle I dealt with trying to deal with the fact that, because here's the thing, I felt like I remember, these guys, and I remember, one of them, and his name was Davis. He had a sister that came over, and visited everybody, in their platoon or whatever. And I remember, kind of in passing, that during that time, like, we said hello. We were, we came back from, to the barracks or whatever, from doing whatever the hell it was that we were doing. And, you know, this is what killed me. I remember her saying specifically, well, he's the best brother ever. He didn't get a chance to come back and have a family, but I did. And I didn't really, then I didn't really have a lot to say that was good about myself. And, you know, with him specifically, that kind of just rang in my head, was, like, what do I have to say for myself?
Yeah.
And that's when the addiction, kind of kicked off. I never really discussed this with the guys. The guys, I don't think, really knew about it. Everybody just saw me as the happy-go-lucky guy. But yeah, that's where I was for a long time.
So let me cut in for just a minute there, Macho.
Yeah.
You brought up a very valid point. I saw something recently that just kind of put everything into perspective. It had a picture. Well, it's okay. So it's actually like two parts. There was one thing I saw where it was an apple, and it was looking at itself in the mirror. Like, there's obviously not looking at itself; it's not alive, duh. But just, this is how it's in my head, so just bear with me here, folks.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit when it comes to that. So the apple's in the mirror, and you see the reflection of the apple, and it's nice and red. It's a firm red apple. The skin, the flesh of the fruit is not bruised. It's not sour. And then you kind of, on the next shot, it's the same thing, but the shot's pulled back a little bit, and you see that the apple has a giant bite mark in it from where somebody took a chunk out of it. And I think it kind of had to do with, talking about how it was making fun of social media. It was kind of jabbing at social media, saying, if this is not the most perfect metaphor for social media, I don't know what is.
Mhm.
And it also kind of made me think about this when I saw recently, where it was just some words on a screen. It said, check on your strong friends. Everyone expects them to be the one to carry the weight of others, but sometimes they're hurting too. And that comment you just made about how you were always the happy-go-lucky guy, I kind of fall in that same category. I'm always the one who might be a little bit loud and boisterous when we go out in public. It's kind of part of my nature. Um, but yeah, I mean, sometimes there's just things going on, and you mask that and hide that by being very outgoing and very giving of yourself in a kind of a comedic, humorous way. I mean, hell, I always go back to this example. Look what happened to Robin Williams. That guy was probably one of the funniest comedians in movies and TV that will probably ever be. One, like, top 5 easy, and that included that conversation. And he had a lot of demons, and the demons just kind of ended up winning and
Yeah.
going from there and whatnot. So, I mean, like I said, there's a lot of examples of this, and it's something very serious. And if you feel like you need help with this, man, reach out to somebody. Whether if it's not us, reach out to
Yeah.
somebody that can help you out with this kind of stuff, because it will definitely kind of like beat you down a little bit. But
Trust me, guys, it's one of those feelings that you don't want to live with. And I'm talking to veterans and regular folks alike. This shit will eat you alive if you let it.
So I remember a story kind of sort of similar in a certain respect, but different because of the person involved. Um, I used to go to a group where it was all kind of like folks. It was the PTSD awareness group, and I just kind of was going to check it out at first, but then ended up going just because like you would meet people that would have similar experiences. It's kind of like you could have a Marine who spent some time in uh, Kaneohe Bay in Hawaii. You have a sailor who is at, Iwakuni, Japan. You have an airman who's way out in Diego Garcia in the middle of the freaking ocean. And you got a guy from Fort Riley, Kansas. Even though
Mhm.
they're 4 completely different people, 4 completely different jobs, being in the military, you have those kind of special memories that even though they're not the same, they're kind of based in a sense of commonality that you may have completely, you got an electronics tech in the Navy talking to an MP in the Marine Corps. It's like, yeah, I totally get it. They understand what's going on. And that was always a cool thing about having and working with other vets and whatnot. But I just did it again. It completely blanked on me, dude. Damn it. Oh, I'm sorry. I got it back. So it's getting better. I think taking that ginkgo biloba is helping. But anyway, so there was this guy and this group, it wasn't just military. It was also like first responders, police, and fire and all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
this one guy, and I'm not going to give his name out of, respect for him, just anonymity and whatnot. He was kind of retelling a story where he, I believe, worked for some kind of police department or a sheriff's office or something. I don't remember where. It doesn't really matter to the story, but they got a call that they had to respond to, and it was all the way on the other side of the county. So here he is screaming, I think code 3 it is, where they have lights and sirens going. He's screaming through this very rural county, and it was a call where, there was it's either like an emotionally disturbed person at EDP or somebody had some type of firearm. It was a domestic dispute, something. I don't know. That's pretty 2 different wide ranging types of calls or whatnot, but in a way they're kind of not. So he was sitting there driving through this county from one corner all the way across to the other and stuff. And we're talking, he's going down these back roads at like 100, 110. And then finally he's like 10 minutes out. They're like, hey, slow it down. The call has been resolved. So he said that he ended up feeling a lot of guilt because he's like, man, if I'd only gotten there a little bit sooner, I might have been able to get in there and help and do something so that this person who ended up, I believe, taking their own life instead of help let the police talk to him and stuff. He felt a lot of guilt. It's like, man, if I could only driven farther, he's already pushing 110 and like screaming through this county, wherever it was. Like, there's only so much you can do, because after a certain point, you go that you can be quick and fast, but then all of a sudden you go faster, and then it just goes down to that level of safety, just goes and starts, depleting itself, because you're at that point a danger to the people around you and whatnot. So, and I had never really thought about it that way. I was like, wow, that's kind of crazy to think about that kind of stuff. So it was I definitely could appreciate him telling that story and whatnot. But okay, so getting back to what we were talking about earlier. So there's a little section here called coping. So coping with survivor's guilt. Now that you have named your emotions and acknowledged that you are dealing with survivor's guilt, which is no easy feat in and of itself, use this opportunity to really embody the lessons you are learning in recovery. Here are a few ideas for coping with survivor's guilt. Change how you talk to yourself. When you think about your loved, wow,
That's how they would have pronounced it back in the day.
well, I sound a little bit ridiculous too. It's been a long day. You might initially feel shame that you didn't do more. You might say to yourself, I'm neglectful. I could have done more. I abandoned them. I do not deserve this sobriety. I do not deserve to be alive. Now is the time to change your negative narrative you are creating. What you focus on is what you feel. Instead of thinking about neglect or abandonment, think about the times you supported that person or someone in a similar situation. When you feel unworthy, make a list of all the hard changes you have made and remind yourself that you are not here by accident. You are here because of perseverance. Alamo, what was that thing that you put up midweek on our Facebook page? Could you recite that, please, if you have it available?
Yes, I can do that right now, my friend. I'll talk it through you to you.
We'll definitely go ahead and read it for the folks that are going to end up listening to this on, one of our streaming platforms later. But for the folks that are, live at 9 with us, just hold on a second.
I found this just kind of scrolling through like inspirational stuff, and there's no real source as to who said it, so I honestly just put it as unknown, whoever said it. It says, the fact that you are still here is proof that whatever tried to beat you failed.
I don't know why, man. Like, I read that and I was just like, yeah, like, absolutely. Like, that hits you right in the feels, man. Absolutely. So
Yeah. That's why I posted it, man. That was a
yeah.
really powerful statement.
So going back to the article, reframe your emotions. Recovery isn't a straight line. It's a path with winds, turns, and curves, and it'll probably be that way for a long, long time. Give yourself permission to celebrate your success by replacing
right there.
negative emotions with positive affirmations. When knowing a loved one is still wrapped up in addiction, instead of feeling ashamed of their sobriety, try feeling compassion for the other person. Then maybe feel compassion for yourself. A loving kindness meditation is a wonderful practice for reframing emotions. This is something I think you and I can both appreciate, Alamo. Dive into a routine. Allow yourself to feel your feelings, but don't get stuck in them. Keep up with your routine. Show up at work, put your heart into your projects, attend group meetings, and open up when you can. Volunteer to give your life to a deeper sense of purpose and start exercising, especially outdoors, to help you deal with the stress.
Yep.
My eyes are just sitting there going, looking at them all sideways. While continuing your routine can help stabilize your emotions, it may be tempting to focus on work or exercise as a way to mask them. Indulging in occasional guilt isn't a bad thing. It can help you release some emotional pressure. Just be sure to continue to move forward even in the midst of your pain. Okay? Have a healthy sense of responsibility. You cannot pour from an empty cup. If you care deeply, but if you're hung up on the good of the situation, you are not free to help the people who need you. Life beyond survivor's guilt. Moving forward in life doesn't mean you stop honoring the memory of the loved ones who has passed away, or caring for someone who still wrestles with drug and alcohol addiction use. Excuse me. It does not mean you give up, but it does mean that you don't linger on what ifs and stand up to needless feelings of guilt and shame. And see, I'll tell you right now, for the folks doing astrological stuff, I'm a Virgo, so I overthink things. So this one is difficult for me. Just moving on is natural, but you may be the best path forward if you're being held back, by a toxic relationship or destructive emotions. And I can tell you plenty of times, folks, that toxic relationship, we've talked about toxic leadership on past shows in the military, talking about how we've experienced them, how we get around them, how we finally put them in the rearview mirror. That line right there, 100% real. Like, you have got to get away from all that kind of toxicity. It's terrible. So be careful with that.
All right, Yawny McYonnerson.
Sorry, it's been a long day, man. I mean, get kids off to school, go to work, do other stuff, and then we're doing a podcast now too. So it's like,
oh wait, no,
say it. Not doing the giggity. Not trying to do the shameless plug, but energy drinks have kind of found their staple back in my life again, unfortunately. Like those shirts that always say I survive strictly on caffeine and rage.
Yeah.
I think I'm there. So yeah. But like we said, going back to what we were talking about earlier, I mean, survivor's guilt, yes, for us it may apply to the military. It's like, why do guys go and why do certain guys get hurt, certain guys don't? I mean, look at our friend Paul. I mean, our buddy from high school. He went over there in your old unit, and it's like, why did he get taken out? This was probably one of the nicest guys. Like, even when I was a senior in high school and you guys are freshmen, he was just one of the nicest dudes you've ever met. Just super, super, super cool, super nice.
Yeah.
Became a medic, went over there and ended up getting killed in action and stuff. And you're just like, the good ones. They always take the good ones. Lewis Black.
His death killed me too, man.
Yeah.
His death killed me too, because again, and you just mentioned it, he went to the same exact unit, same exact company. I mean, we could have very well hung out together. You know what I mean? And it just, it doesn't make any sense. And then, to find out, and this was right after I was home, and, obviously I was still going through what happened to the Hunter Platoon guys. And then I find out Paul was trying to save a kid and got blown up.
I remember my brother calling me about that. And he's like, "Hey man, are you sitting down?" I'm like, yeah.
It killed me, man. I didn't understand. I'm like, man, like why are all these guys that have
everything going for them?
Yeah.
Everything going for them. But again, I mean, like we talked about, dude, it's like all these people's stories deserve to be told. Like there was this cool monument that came to Tampa a while back. And when I was out and, kind of like doing my jogging or my, doing my ruck marches and stuff, it was back behind the convention center. And what it was this long, kind of like the Vietnam Wall, except for the whole thing was done up with blue, silver, or red colored dog tags that had the names and the dates of death of all of the killed in action for the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. And it was quite a few of these names on there. Like, it's a lot. And it's, I remember going to the Vietnam Memorial and I took a picture of two names there only because it was the two people that they mentioned in the movie We Were Soldiers. It was Lieutenant Gagan and then Willie Godbolt, who Godbolt got hit, and then Gagan went back. LT Gagan went back to him
Went to go
to
get
get
him.
him out of there, and then he ended up getting shot and he died and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
there was a very loose sense of connection there, but that's kind of why I took their names. But when you see people on the wall and you start going through a list of names, all that stuff, and you're like, you find out that some of these people, like there was a guy I was with, big Samoan dude. His name was Fuga. He was a staff sergeant when I was in Afghanistan, and he stayed for a second year. And sometime during that second year, he was killed in Afghanistan. It just kind of gives you that little bit of pause. You're just like, fuck, and getting into us closing out the show here. It's always really bad when you find out that they made it home alive, but then something happens and it makes them take their own life, and it's just like,
Yeah.
After all that, man, you're like, come on, dude. It just sucks. Like you see so many of these people online, on social media. They're like, hey, man, I'm doing a bro check on everybody. Please just say, hey, what's up? How's it going? We're up. All that kind of stuff, because like it's a big deal. I mean, survivor's guilt is just something else that can totally wreck and ruin someone's life to the point of, as we say,
you mentioned that, and that happened with like two people that came home. One of them was actually a survivor of that explosion. It was Doc Riddle. Doc Riddle came home. I wish I could have talked to him more. I didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what was going on in his life when he decided to do what he did. But I love that guy. I hung out with him plenty of times enough, and you look back and you think to yourself, like, man, like, why? And I often think, like, maybe it was just he was feeling what I was feeling, but probably just a more severe version of it.
Yeah.
And another one would have been Sergeant Becker. Sergeant Becker was in that platoon, and he ended up, I think like 1 or 2 years after Doc Riddle, ended up doing the same thing. Again, with him, same thing. I don't know what was going on in his life. I just know he ended up taking the other way out, and it sucks, man. Lord knows what he was feeling. I guarantee probably survivor's guilt was part of it.
Yeah. So to kind of to tie this all together and start wrapping out the show, this is a good point, if any, to kind of make that transition. So
yeah.
By all means, if you have any comments you want to add when you see this, when you watch this program, when you listen to it, whatever that may be, whether it's on one of our social media.
And bear in mind, guys, you can comment on either Spotify, you can comment on Anchor, you can comment on YouTube, on all the platforms we are on. You can make comments on it, and you can say what you want to say, and we'll respond to it. We'll do our best to respond to it immediately that day when we see it, but we will respond to it at some point.
But like I was saying, I mean, this is probably as good a time as anything to transition into kind of closing the show out. So, yeah. I mean, listen, there's a lot of awful things that happen that you don't expect. You go over there saying, yeah, I might fight the enemy. I might keep the people home safe. Well, a lot of times those battles can come home with you. Okay. So
yeah,
you have to always understand there are resources out there. As we say every single show, do not solve a temporary problem with a permanent solution. Okay. Your story deserves to be told. Your story needs to be heard by others. If anything, hell, just get together, remember the good times, talk about it, and have that sense of camaraderie and that, sense of companionship and the sense of community that we so desperately, a lot of veterans are looking for once they get out and stuff. So as we were, developing this podcast, which we started after a friend of ours had committed suicide, um, we were trying to think about things that we could do to impress upon other people to help them when things get rough. So we came up with the Battle Bros Code. And what the Battle Bros Code is, it's just something you can use to remember that you need to hang around. You need to fight the good fight, even if it means help from a friend, help from somebody else. Call up
Damn
your battle
right.
buddies, man. Stay in touch with the folks that you serve with. That's something I regretted. Having gotten in the military, I was one of those guys that wasn't on Facebook, so it was just like, eh. But those people are out there, and they can be that invaluable asset to help keep everybody safe and sound. So, easy way to remember this is just to remember the word bros, BROS. They go in order. Be tenacious. Okay, no matter what you do in life, go out, take the bull by the horns. Okay, go out there and do the absolute best job you can do. Don't half-ass anything, whether it's, you know, training for a 10K, whether it's being a parent, whether it's being a teacher, being a first responder, whether it's just being there for a friend, sitting there having that person sit on your couch. Okay. Understand the responsibility that comes with that. Be tenacious with it. Don't half-ass the thing. Refuse to surrender. There's going to be a lot of things that happen in life. Okay. Things that you may have foreseen coming, things that you may have anticipated or planned, and things that just like, where the fuck out of left field did that shit come from? Holy fuck. There's things like that happen all the time. Okay. The thing you have to remember is like, it's a temporary setback. It's very, very easy to keep the traction going. All right, may have to sidestep some stuff, do a little creative and how you get around these things, but don't give up. Keep moving
Yeah.
forward. Never let yourself lose ground or slip in the mud and slide down the hill. Okay. Obliterate your obstacles. Kind of goes hand in hand with the last one. There's going to be things that get you sideways, get you twisted, get you turned around. Okay. Get you off course. Hell, we've all been lost on that land nav course of life. It happens. That's why it's called the land and nav course of life. You're going to get lost from time to time. You're going to be like, what happened to my azimuth? I'm lost in the freaking woods. We're in a trail
Yeah.
yet. And I'm just like, I'm lost. It happens. Okay. What you need to understand is take the time, think it out, plan how you're going to extricate yourself out of that situation and get it back around it. Okay. Do not let these obstacles get you twisted, get you sideways, and keep you from picking yourself up off your knees. Get your dick out of the dirt, freaking brush yourself off, and drive the fuck on. Simple as
Yeah.
that. The last one is by far probably the most important and ties all this stuff together, and that's S. Seek help from a friend in a time of need. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of things that happen in your life that you don't count on. There's a lot of stories. There's been a lot of studies about how these guys they served in Vietnam and they immediately went into the workforce and they worked a 20, 30-year job. And then now that they're out of job and they're retired, now they start to think about and process all the bad things that happened in Vietnam, or even for guys that aren't in the GWAT generation. I mean, you try sometimes just to hide that stuff. It's okay to call somebody up and just be like, hey man, I'm not exactly doing too well. I need a friend. Can you be my phone friend? Absolutely. Like, do it. If somebody's reaching out to you, feel honored because they respect you enough to call you and be like, hey man, I don't want to burden you with this, but absolutely not. I've gone through that myself. I had a friend call me up and they were just like, I'm so glad you called because I got a lot of bad thoughts running through my mind. I need some help. And ran down there and spent the night with that person and just got them settled and okay. And I still talk to this person. We're still friends. So, yeah, absolutely. Having your old military mates, man. I mean, your teammates, your battle buddies, all that kind of stuff. That's where the name of our show came from, the Battle Bros. It's an amalgam of brother and battle buddy. Battle Bros. Okay. And it was kind of when we were talking about it, it's like, that seems a little bit goofy. And then it explained to me, I'm like, oh yeah, we're definitely doing that. So if you're one of those folks, maybe you fell out of touch, you're having a rough time, you're stuck in a rut, you don't know where to turn to, there are resources out there. One of those resources, if you're kind of thinking some thoughts that, maybe you want to harm yourself, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. Okay. It is one, where is it again? Did you pull it up, Alamo?
The which one?
Suicide
There you
prevention. There it is. Yeah, awesome. Sorry, I spaced on the number here for a minute. We'd say it every show, and I spaced. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline. It's 1-800-273-8255. I'll say that one more time. It's 1-800-273-8255. Okay. They will have somebody ready to go to talk to you, to help you out through your rough spots. Okay. If they're not available, hell, call one of us. Okay. We want to make sure that everybody that can be around to tell their story and pass that wisdom and knowledge on to the next generation is here to do so. We're losing World War II vets and Vietnam vets at a pretty staggering rate. And these are guys that are like, you can learn a lot from some of these old geezers. I mean, and I say that with all respect intended, because these are some tough old birds and some tough old bastards, right?
Yeah.
There's those guys in World War II that jumped in on D-Day, or they came in on the amphibious assault boats and all that stuff on the beach. Like, most of these guys don't wear underwear. You know why? Their balls don't fit. It's absolutely true. But again, we want to keep everybody around. You need to be here, and there are resources out there. So please feel free to reach out to any one of those resources, whether it's calling a friend, calling a battle buddy, whether it's calling somebody you served with, just talk to somebody. It's important. This whole 22 a day thing with the number of veterans that are committing suicide is just as, if not more, pressing of an epidemic than COVID. I mean, COVID, say what you want about it, we're not going to get into the politics of all that stuff. I mean, it is a very serious thing, but the fact that we have all of these people not knowing where to turn and just saying, well, I think I'll just take myself out of the game. Nobody has to worry about me anymore. Bullshit.
Yep. Yeah.
We care about you. We want to hear from you. We love you. We want you to stay around. So let us help you. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that being said, that's going to conclude our show. This is episode 017, Survivor's Guilt of the Battle Bros podcast. Again, we want to thank everybody for tuning in.
We didn't plug our social medias.
We also give a shout out. The shout out.
Exactly, man.
My bad.
Then
reel that back in.
Yeah,
so
let's reel that back in. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and this is a shout out to Brent Lee. He's a prior service Marine. He's also a buddy of mine and Max from high school. He went ahead and actually kind of spearheaded slightly this subject / topic that we're talking about this week. Or maybe just call it, I don't know, a weird state of mind where like we kind of were in sync for whatever reason, because I think all three of us at the same time were thinking the same shit.
So we were, let me kind of buttress against it. So
yeah,
we were talking last week, we kind of have been going week to week kind of to figure out what we're going to talk about. And one of the suggestions that was brought up by our content creation team, which is me and Alamo and another lovely person who knows who she is.
Exactly.
We were sitting there and we were trying to talk about some show topics and whatnot. So this person brought up, he's like, why don't you have people writing questions or topics and you get engagement from the viewers? It's like, hey, that's a great idea. Absolutely. So midweek or something early in the week, you kind of brought that up, and then Lee kind of answered the call and kind of told us what his thoughts on that. So and go. So Lee.
Yeah. So yeah, we had Brent Lee. Thank you, brother. Shout out to you, our friend. Azuma.
I don't know what you just said.
I don't know what the hell I just said either.
Shit up, man.
But if you want to go ahead and contact us, you could find us on the social medias at facebook.com/battlepros.podcast. You can also find us on the Instagram at Battle Bros _podcast. You can also find us on the Spotify. You can find us on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts,
The
Anchor,
app.
the Anchor app, Overcast, Breaker, Castbox, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and Stitcher.
And a partridge in
a pear tree. Yeah. There's quite a few there. We apparently expanded a little bit.
Yeah, a smidge.
But we went from, I believe, like 4 or 5 to like that. I think that was what, 7 or 8.
Something like that.
So
it's doubled.
yeah. So you can, if you need to figure out where we're at, those, like I said, those sources right there is where you can find us anywhere. Just, type in Battle Bros Podcast. We're usually going to be number 1 that pops up. Same thing with the YubTub.
We're number 1.
Same thing with the YubTub. Just look for us as under Battle Bros Podcast, and we're usually right there at the top on the list.
It's a picture with both of our with this handsome gentleman over here, and then my habitually ugly self over here. But yeah, I mean,
yar.
I know I got a big fucking head. I'm stuck with it, so it is what it is. But do we have anything else?
Other than that,
Do we have anything else we want to plug?
That is it. I think we can close it out from here. Listen, guys. One last thing before we go, I'm going to tell you guys, hey, me and Mac, we love you guys. We did this episode specifically because it is something that affects literally everybody, veteran community included. But especially in our community, it is something that branches out into many different other kind of feelings and other kind of, let's just say, negative side effects. So I wanted to make sure that we came off as genuine as possible with this episode, and as raw and as upfront as we possibly could. Not that we don't do it with every episode that we do, but this one was one of those episodes where we had to make sure that the thoughts came across. And we hope that you guys got something out of it. And
absolutely,
as always, you can contact us on any one of those social media platforms. Obviously on the YouTube, drop comments on either platform. We really honestly don't care, as long as you're contacting us, letting us know. We're here for you guys, and we hope you guys are here for us. So that's it. That's all I got.
One last thing, and then I promise I'm going to shut up after this. So we don't know what we're going to have the show on next week. We have a couple of topics that we're still kind of finalized and maybe discuss. But next weekend on the 7th, be on the lookout for a little bit of extra special kind of content. So Alamo and I are going to be doing a 10K over in Tampa. He's driving out to Tampa. It's like, who could hang out together? Hey, so it's a group called Neo Endurance puts on this thing. It's called the Veterans Run. It's the first 10K I did 2 years ago. Last year they had a virtual event due to COVID and whatnot, but this year they're opening it back up again. It's the 4th annual they've done it. We're actually going to. So they have like 4 different events to do. They have a 5K, a 10K, they have a half marathon, and they have a 16-mile course, which goes over the Courtney Campbell Causeway and then back. So, yeah, I wouldn't do 16 miles if I didn't have anything less than 4 wheels. So, no. But we're going to do a 10K, and we're going to kind of, see if we can go out there and, ruck it up and, make sure we can still kind of get down like we used to back in the day with the
Ruck
Army.
it up and yuck it up.
Pretty much, yes. That's it, dude. There we go. That's what we do. We have our own event. We call it the Ruck and Yuck. It's awesome. It's awesome. Anyway, you heard it here first. Don't steal our idea, please. We haven't got it copyrighted yet. Anyway, but yeah, so we're gonna try to actually post some stuff onto our Facebook page live here and there while we're out there on the course, like when we step off, when we come back across the finish line.
Damn skibbity bibbity.
we're gonna just be. You'll probably see a couple of videos of us just being like, "What the fuck are they doing?" So, but I'm looking forward to it. This has been something we've been planning for quite a few months now. It's a long time coming that we get to go do this, and it's gonna be fun. So just be on the lookout for some extra special content on Sunday, November 7th. That's when the event is. We'll be probably going live from Facebook while we're out there and whatnot.
Behind
And
the scenes is
behind the scenes, they do, and this is a pretty cool event. It's a lot of you have. I think they have a color guard come out from McDill. They do the national anthem and all that kind of stuff, and they present the colors and whatnot. It's pretty cool. So I'm super excited about it. You'll see some cheesy photos of us here and there. We actually just got some shirts made up, which is going to be cool. So we actually look legit when we're doing it. But just be on the lookout for that. As for next week, we are not quite sure what the episode is going to be on, but guarantee you we're going to give it our all. We're going to do our best to bring you some good content and just to bring up and discuss those hard topics. We don't do anything the easy way, as you notice. We talk about some real life hard shit questions. So that's just kind of become our niche. So, next week we'll do it all again. So again, thank you for watching the Battle Bros podcast. This is episode 017, Survivor's Guilt. Thank you again for tuning in. Please hopefully come back, check us out next week when we bring you another exciting episode of two guys just being asshats and being semi-serious at the same time. So we hope to see you then. But until then, thank you for stopping by. Thanks for having a listen and a look. And we will catch you on the flip side. So this is Battle Bros Podcast for this week. And we are signing off.
Battle Bros out.
Deuces.